All right, everyone. Well, welcome to this week's community conversation. You got me, Mike Collette, and Coach Jon Collette on the convo today. We're actually going to be talking about this new Kickstart that we got going on, the 6-week Dial Down, Dial Up Kickstart that we're launching, which starts Monday, January 17th. It's a 6-week. We're calling it a Kickstart because it's not a challenge, right? So it's essentially to kickstart you into having better habits. And so the focus of this Kickstart, and Jon and I are going to talk about this, but the focus is like the first half, so the first 21 days is going to be about dialing down your bad habits, hence the name Dial Down. And then the next 21 days is going to be about dialing up good habits or creating new habits. So in any event, both Jon and I feel pretty strongly about, challenges and where that can go wrong, why we wanted to do something a little different. And the time commitment isn't enormous, right? It's only 6 weeks. We've done like 45-day challenges. We've done like 90-day challenges. We've done all this sort of stuff. So it's not a long-term commitment, but it's enough time to start to be able to create better habits that will set you up for the rest of the year. And we put out the sign up not too long ago, and we're capping it, by the way, at only 30 people, because with this Kickstart, one of the big differences between this and some of the other ones that we've done in the past is that you're going to get a lot more higher level coaching. So you're going to have access to both myself and Jon to help coach you on the things you might be struggling with, and also help you to kind of level up to create some good habits. So again, like, we're limiting it because we want people that are really committed, that want to make some changes. And I think we only have, I don't know, Jon, 3 or 4 spots left as of right now, which has been pretty cool to see that list start to fill up. And we'll include all the links to the signups and stuff like that. But we wanted to make this this community conversation episode all around the Kickstart and giving you guys all the details on what's coming down. So with that being said, I'd love to talk about the format and how these 6 weeks are going to look and feel. So a couple things is there's going to be some resources, right? So we've created some resources to get you started even before the challenge starts, which is a habit tracker, which we'll have links to. So if you're signing up, you'll have a link to be able to download your own habit tracker. And then 2 is a worksheet to start to figure out what your bad habits or bad behaviors, I guess you can call it, are, to figure out which ones you're going to dial down. And so in any event, on top of that, we're going to be providing you guys with tons of information, like emails and all this sorts of stuff. And like our big ask is going to be all around communication. So, one of the things, and I guess I'll just kind of jump around here, but one of the things that's really important, especially as we go through this, is reflecting on like the week, reflecting on like the different things or changes that you're making. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be a struggle. But the more transparent everyone is, the better things will go, and the more Jon and myself will be able to help you. But Jon, I don't know, what are your thoughts, and why are you excited about this Kickstart?
Yeah, I think this is going to be different than what you guys have done in the past. In the past, we focused on very like, do this, do this, do this. But I think everyone's going to have some different things that they need to work on personally. And again, like Mike mentioned, is that the first 21 days is going to be awareness. So you actually need to know what some of their common reoccurring behaviors are before we even start working on, new ones. So instead of focusing on eating a vegetable with every meal, we need to start to identify what are some of the things that are obstacles that are making that the challenge to begin with. Why is that something that you're struggling with? And that's the premise of the challenge is, well, it's not really a challenge. It's more being able to bring to light some of your struggles and then working on addressing those, right? But yeah, We also have a Facebook group that some of you have already started to look up and you've started to find, you started to ask to join, which is great. We haven't even sent the invites out yet, but some of you are already taking some initiative to find the group. So awesome. That's where a lot of the communication is going to be as well, is going to be in that group, and also like supporting each other in there.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. And you know, you mentioned you know, the focus is on dialing down bad behaviors. And then it's like, once we can kind of sort those things out, it's dialing up some new behaviors. And to be honest, some folks might not even get to that point, which is okay, right? There might be some stuff we need to focus on for the full 6 weeks that might be just on the dial down component versus the dial up. So one of the biggest keys to making any sort of change is focusing on small sustainable change. So think like the 2% rule. So 2% change week over week leads to a tremendous amount of growth by the end of the year. Where challenges go wrong, where habit change goes wrong, where behavior change goes wrong, where any sort of change goes wrong is when you try to do way too much, way too fast in the beginning. So an example would be, you know, trying to work out, you know, from working out 0 times a week to working out every single day of the week, or from having some really bad nutrition habits to going on some sort of like crazy diet. And, you know, one thing we were talking about in our leadership team meeting yesterday is this idea of like willpower versus habits. And so when we rely on willpower to make change, it only lasts so long, right? We all have a certain degree of willpower. Some have more willpower than others. But willpower will fail 10 times out of 10 opposed to good, strong habits. And it takes time to build good, solid foundational habits. And investing the time into those small changes can be really challenging because we don't tend to see the results right away. And I think as like human beings, and this is a really good conversation we had back and forth yesterday, is, you know, as like human beings, we want to see that like instant change. You know, that's why these companies that make these like quick fix sort of pills, these quick fix like solutions make a lot of money, because they benefit on that desire that we have to make that instant change. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work. It might work for the short term, but it doesn't work for the long term. And, you know, John's been on these conversations before. We've talked about nutrition and where it goes wrong is the sustainability component to it. I think one of the things you've said, John, just kind of going back and forth here with like nutrition stuff and weight loss, it's like, I think you said something along the lines of losing weight isn't hard, it's keeping weight off that is hard, right? Yeah. And like that to me is all around like building good foundational habits, right? Like anyone can lose weight real quick. That's willpower, right? Anyone can starve themselves for a week and lose 5 pounds. But like that's not the solution long term. I think that's why you're so opposed to diets, because it's not a long-term sustainable habitual solution.
Well, I think a perfect analogy would be like someone that has a cluttered desk, right? If you have a cluttered desk, like it's not hard to clean your desk, right? You can take all the shit off your desk and then it's good. That's essentially going on like a 30-day weight loss diet. But if you don't realize that every single time you get home, you drop all your shit on your desk, you're just going to reclutter it, right? So that's like essentially what we're trying to do is figure out, like anyone can eat a healthy meal, but how do we do that consistently? We have to figure out what are the behaviors and what are the other things that are happening in order for that to be actually achievable long-term and not just short term.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. I mean, you know, when we look at this this kickstart, you know, the first week is going to be really important, and not only the first week, but even before the challenge starts. So to kind of give some context, we'll be sending out kind of like a curriculum for folks to kind of like get caught up. We're also going to be doing a kickstart call on the day that the challenge starts at 5 p.m. We'll be doing a Zoom to answer any questions if there's any ambiguity. And again, we're going to be sending out emails and all that sort of stuff to everyone that ends up signing up. I have a feeling that we're going to hit the 30 by the end of the day today. But like I was saying, even week 1, day 1, even before the challenge starts, like the observation reflection period of like figuring out, okay, what are the bad habits that you have? And And in order to do that, the best way to do that, I should say, which I have found, is to write out in detail, like in absolute detail, what your daily routine is. And I would start by looking at the first day of the week and the last day of the week, and maybe even into the weekend, because that's where things can kind of fall off a little bit. But typically what happens during the week can set us up either for success for the weekend, or can set us up for failure in the weekend. And an example of that is like under eating all week and then binging on the weekend, right? Like it's you binging on the weekend because you're starving because you haven't eaten anything during the week, right? So if we can address that stuff early in the week, it probably will lead to better habits over the weekends. And so there's all this sorts of stuff. And we're just focusing right now on just like the nutrition side of things, but this is like anything that's a bad habit. This could be like, walking into the door from work and being on your phone and not paying attention to your kids or your spouse, right? So like this challenge isn't necessarily just about dialing down bad habits that relate to fitness, which it could be totally, and that could also be what your goals are. But I also think there's opportunity to address other habits as well, because I don't know about you, John, but I look at this as an opportunity to be a better person and achieve other things outside of things just on the physical fitness side of stuff. So it's really interesting that it can go kind of in those directions.
I also think that's where the reflection piece is going to be huge, is like looking back at what went well, what didn't go well the previous day, and being able to identify it before it becomes a reoccurring thing. So the reflection piece that Mike was talking about earlier is also going to be like huge. So yeah, I think you guys are going to be working on some stuff that you probably haven't done in the past, probably been very like tactical, like do this, and like previous things. This is definitely going to be a little bit more of having to think and observe your own like behaviors and your own self a little bit more than maybe you have in the past. And that's what we are here to support you with along on the way.
Yeah, I think the coaching that everyone is going to get in this is going to be as much coaching as they want to get out of this, if that makes sense. So, the more coaching you want, the more coaching you will get, the more effort you're putting into yourself, the more coaching you're going to get. The less you communicate or want to communicate, you'll probably end up getting less coaching. Because at the end of the day, like we really want to help the folks that are really committed to wanting to help themselves. And that's exactly why we put a cap to it. It's not because John and I can't handle more than 30 people. That's not the case at all. As a matter of fact, we could handle a lot more, but we really want to keep it as a small group because we want the folks that are most committed to making those changes and that want to make the changes, right? So, something that will be interesting is like, we're not going to tell you what to do specifically in the sense like, okay, do this, do this, do this. There's going to be a little bit of like John was saying, thoughtfulness on thinking through the things that you want to change and why it's going to be important for you to make the change, opposed to us telling you why you need to change it and what you need to change specifically. And the reason why I so strongly believe in that approach, especially with all the work I've been doing the last year, is when we're told exactly what to do every single step of the way, we don't take ownership of those things. And when there's a link in the chain that's missing, right? So when the kickstart ends and there's not, us here telling you exactly what to do every step of the way, you haven't built a good foundation for yourself, right? And this is what this whole thing is about. We're going to help coach, we're going to help lead you, but we're not going to tell you every single thing to do. And that's a big component of this sort of stuff. We'll be as much a resource as you need us to be. And again, we're here to help, right? But again, there is some ownership that everyone who's doing this is going to take on. So it's unique, it's different. It's something that we haven't really done before. We've been putting it into practice ourselves from a team perspective. Just now we have a slight twist to it on making this more for all of you guys, for our members, to be able to take advantage of a lot of the higher level executive coaching that we've been getting and that we've been doing as well. So it's exciting to put this stuff into practice for the gym. It's actually really cool. I'm really excited about it. I mean, Jon, what do you think? Like, what are you most excited about for the challenge? I know you put together a list of all these like different bad habits. Maybe talk a little bit about some of the examples. I'm sure some folks are kind of thinking, okay, what's a bad habit? Like exactly.
I mean, a perfect example of a bad habit that may not be a easy one to identify is like an easy one is like, oh, I want to start working out in the morning. Like I haven't been able to be consistent with working out at night. But we don't understand the bad habit is that you stay up late. So it could be as simple as observing some of those things, like figuring out like what are the things that you want to do, and then what are the things that are, what are the bad habits, what are the reoccurring behaviors that are making that very difficult to go ahead and do. You want to work out in the morning, but every time you go ahead and you wake up, you hit snooze, that's a bad habit. Like setting your alarm and not utilizing it, that's a bad habit. Or staying up late and then you're tired in the morning and then you're like, no, I'm going to skip the gym because I need another hour of sleep, that's a bad habit. Like figuring out what are those things that are making it so you're not having to rely on willpower to get out of bed when you've gotten 3 hours of sleep. You need to work on your nighttime routine before your morning routine is ever going to go ahead and be more efficient, right? So it's figuring it. It's almost like I don't know what's the saying. It's like a you're it's like a give and take, right? Give and take. Like some things are going to have to go and some things are going to go ahead and happen because of those things like not happening anymore, right? Giving up a half hour of Netflix, you can go ahead and have a empty the dishwasher and do that stuff that you didn't do the day before, that you're like, okay, I got to do this before I go to work, and then you end up running behind. Like it's figuring out what are those things for you. And that's what I'm excited about. Is it doesn't have to be 100% nutrition related, but a lot of these things are going to connect with your fitness and with your nutrition because stress impacts those things big time.
Totally. Yeah, I think, again, so if we were to look at this from like a process perspective, it's like, what is the desired result that you want to have, right? So what's like your vision? Like what, you could think goals, future outlook, like why do you want to make the change? Which I think a lot of people put that in which was part of the ask when signing up was like, okay, well, why do you want to do this Kickstart, right? So there's some sort of like understanding of like, what do you want to improve, right? So that's one, right? So there's that idea. Then two, it's like Jon said, there's a reflection. So let's figure out, okay, what are the bad habits we have? And in order to do that, we need to like walk yourself through, write out every like in grave detail. Okay, what time do you wake up every day, right? What do you do after you wake up? Like, do you wake up and pick up your phone and go on Instagram for 30 minutes? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's in grave detail. What are these things that we're doing, right? These bad habits. Okay. So getting in as excruciating detail as possible. Where the coaching that you're going to get is on how to dial down those bad behaviors. So you're going to have to figure out what those bad behaviors are. And then you're going to also have to figure out, which we can help with this, is like, what are like the top three? What are the top three bad behaviors that, if you change one of them is going to give you huge return on that investment, right? So like, again, like you could think from like, a bigger perspective. I'm sure you guys can all think of something, but like Jon gives the example of like, of sleep, right? So going to bed late, spending 2 hours watching Netflix and having to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning, and you go to bed at 12 o'clock every single night because you're doing this. If we eliminate one of those bad behaviors, which there's strategies to do that, it's going to be systematic, right? So it's not going to be, okay, like here's a bad behavior, just stop doing it. It doesn't work like that either, right? Like eliminating a bad habit is just as challenging as developing a new habit. It takes consistency, it takes reps, it takes being deliberate about it. It's the exact same thing, it's just worded slightly different. So if a habit is impacting your ability to get to where you want to be, there needs to be a almost like a wean off period for that. And that's where we're going to help you, coach you up on. And there's tons of strategies to be able to do that. So it's identifying what are those top three bad habits, where to dial down, where to get the biggest ROI. And then when we get consistent with that over the course of 21 days or so, maybe even longer for some folks, is where can we dial it up? Now, where this goes wrong is identifying a bad habit, thinking that you're just going to eliminate it, spending 3 days eliminating it, being like, okay, I'm done with this bad habit. Now let me like add in all these new habits. No. Like back to the whole idea of that 2% change. This is going to be a slower process than a faster process. And if we want sustainable change, it has to go slow versus go fast. Sometimes you got to slow down to speed up. And there's going to be some patience that's going to be involved in this stuff too. But like, that's where the group comes in, right? And so like, for the folks that are in this for the next 42 days, again, that's why we're calling it level up 42, dial down, dial up. Those folks that are in this for the next 42 days is going to be your group, your like support group. And you can leverage the group, you can leverage your coaches as much as possible. But as you start to see success and find things that work for you, you're going to be able to help other people more as well. So there's also a give and take here, right? So a lot of stuff we talk about, like in our team leadership meetings, is this whole concept of like the oxygen mask theory, right? So the oxygen, well, not theory, but it's real, right? So you get on a plane, and the first thing the flight attendants will talk about once they start going through their brief is like the oxygen mask. And they say you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on someone else if you have like a little kid. And like typically we like to help people, right? First, right? Support, do stuff for other people before we help ourselves. But the idea with the oxygen mask, like you have to help yourself. You need to be able to breathe in order to be able to help someone else. And you'll find that like, as you start to level up and improve and your habits improve, which has been like, we could pick out, I don't know, tons of case studies at our gym of folks that have seen some really great results, have benefited, have done things really well, and naturally that spills over and they naturally start to help other people. That's what makes our community so strong, is this whole approach of like this better me, right? I've gotten better. I've gotten so much better that I can help other people. That's better you, which creates better us, right? This better me, better you, better us sort of approach. And so, talking about that, like leveraging the group, helping yourself first, then being able to help others, it'll be even more authentic and you'll be more relatable to helping folks. And so I'm really excited to see how that comes out, how that turns out with the group. I think there's a lot of, I'm looking at the list of folks that have signed up. There's a lot of really awesome people in this group that I know can help each other already. So I'm excited to see how that transpires and turns out. And again, we'll have worksheets and all this sort of stuff for everyone to be able to fill out. But Jon, what are some other examples of some like bad habits that maybe you've kind of identified or helped people work through in the past with kind of like your nutrition coaching, and where folks may not have been aware, right, of some of those habits that you've helped coach them to identify to some extent?
I mean, one of the ones that jumps out to me is, because I just had this conversation with the client the other day. It's like, I got takeout 3 days in a row. Okay, why'd you get takeout? Well, I didn't have anything in the fridge. Realized you can go to the grocery store that week. So there's like things that like add up, right? So he doesn't have a day of the week that he goes to the grocery store. He goes to the grocery store whenever he needs food. So it's poor planning. So that was like one thing that jumped out to me was, if you struggle with being able to eat consistently the types of foods you want to eat, it could be as simple as not going to the grocery store. It could be as simple as not having a shopping list. It could be as simple as not having a conversation with your family in advance. And all that stuff happens before you even put any food into your mouth or anything like that. And this is just, again, directly nutrition related, is like, it could be something as simple as not going to the grocery store that is causing you to not, be as consistent as you'd like to be, or have to rely on convenience all the time. And a lot of us rely on convenience for a lot of things. So that could be something that we think about too when we're trying to identify behaviors. How much do we rely on convenience when trying to trying to go towards fixing a problem, right? Like how often do we rely on Hello Fresh, like those things that are delivered to you? That sounds great, but if you're never cooking your own food, what happens when you don't feel like cooking HelloFresh or you don't want to have that food? You're probably going to order takeout. And there can be so many scenarios of something like that that happens where it just comes down to poor planning, where things just become really difficult to be able to follow through with anything, poor planning in general.
Yeah. And I mean, it brings it back to like intensity versus consistency, right? This idea of like willpower versus like building like habits. Like habits are formed over, it's consistency over time, right? And it takes conscious effort to form those habits, right? You have to like be deliberate about it, which is like what a big intention of this is about being deliberate about dialing down bad habits, dialing up some potential good habits. But like the thing that's always interesting, and this is where like habits win and willpower loses, is like if we are, and this is something we didn't talk about yesterday, I was just thinking about, is like if we look at willpower, like willpower wins when we're like feeling really good, right? When we're like well fed, when we're well rested, when we're in a good mood, when we're happy, like we can willpower anything, right? Basically. But like when you're stressed, when like shit hits the fan, when like, you're not feeling good, when you're hungry, when you're overwhelmed, like that's when the real stuff comes out, right? And it's a lot harder to willpower, like some of those things, it's going to lose, right? But like if you have a strong foundation of like really good habits, regardless of the situation, more than likely you'll stay consistent. I'm sure, Jon, that you've been super stressed at certain points from 2020 to now, having a baby, all these major changes in your life. But because you've built really good habits on the nutrition front, on the exercise front, you're able to sustain that, right? Like, however, when, and I think it's, I'm just like hypothesizing here, but like with the struggles of 2020, COVID, all that stuff, a lot of people really struggled with different things, especially around the fitness and nutrition side. And more than likely, it was because of a lack of really strong habits. There's other things that are incorporated into that. If you guys are listening right now, I'm sure you're probably like, well, Mike, that's not it. Well, of course, there's other things that relate to that. However, like, let's just easy example is like being able to stay fit during COVID. We had a lot of people in our gym that stayed really fit during COVID. Like they went from in-person classes to virtual, to potentially like working out on their own, to potentially having like private coaching, private programming, virtual programming. Like the situation didn't change the habit of like them being able to work out. What changed was like what they could do, but like them being able to stay in that consistent routine, those consistent habits, that didn't change. Like they're like ingrained in them. But a lot of people in the world didn't have that strong foundation. Maybe they didn't have community. Maybe they didn't have all those sorts of things. They may have been people that have gone to the gym 2 or 3 times a week, got on a treadmill for 30 minutes, walked, got on the Nautilus machines, whatever. But as soon as 2020, like COVID hit, it was like out the door, right? Like that, like it was completely disrupted. So it's interesting, like, because of how much uncertainty there is now in the world, and with the new variants coming out and all this sort of stuff, we don't know what's going to happen. So it's even more important now than ever, in my opinion, to be focusing on building strong foundational habits so you can crush 2022. So starting now, building from where you are now in 2022 to where you're going to end in 2022, if it's focused on the 2% change, making those gradual changes over time, like you're going to upgrade as a human being. And guess what? Like, as you build momentum and start to upgrade, things go faster, things get easier, right? In the beginning, it might feel a little slow, but as you start to get on a roll and things start to improve, man, it's really cool to see how fast people can improve and succeed. So anyway, I'm just super excited about it. I know we jumped around a lot on this. I mean, we never go into these conversations scripted or anything like that. So I know
I have one more. I know you want to go over the habit tracking sheet, right? You want to go over that in a minute? I'll give you one more example of why this stuff's like so important. Is that I remember this was probably 2 or 3 years ago. I remember having this conversation. Didn't even click with me until recently. I had a conversation with a client that I was working with for about 10 weeks. And they made progress. And I remember the thing that they said towards that on that 10th week, it's going to surprise you what they said. Is they said, no matter how much you want it, I'm not going to change my lifestyle. Right. And this was someone that traveled for work, and this is what they did. And they said, as much as you want, I'm not going to change my lifestyle. And that's when it really just clicked with me now, is that you have to give a shit like about this yourself more than anyone else, because as much as someone else wants something for you, it's not going to happen. It's not going to become a, you're not going to be able to form a habit unless it's something that you really, really want to do. And it can't be a New Year's resolution. It's really got to be something that you want to do. It's got to be like an identity change. Like you have to be the type of person that's like, yeah, I go to bed, I get 7 hours of sleep. I have a vegetable with my meal. I work out. I'm a runner. Like whatever it is, you have to become that person, or you're not going to be able to like stay consistent. If you're someone that drinks alcohol a lot, you have to become the type of person that doesn't drink that much. That's the behavior change. That's the identity shift that has to happen if you want these things to really be like something that you stick with. It's got to be something that deep down inside you, it's something you really, really, really want to do.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just real quick, couple things just to share. So I want to share this. So you're probably not watching this on YouTube right now, so you probably can't see my screen. So I'll keep this super brief, but you're going to get a sheet called the bad habits worksheet. And this is where we're going to jot down all of your bad habits and also give some references of how this impacts you. And then we're going to start to dial it in terms of like what those top 3 bad habits are, and then what is like literally the top 1 and what's like the bottom 1 in terms of your habits. So it's basically it's figuring out what's the things that you're doing that that are basically, it's like, you know, if you make that change, it'll have a huge impact, right? It's not small, but something big that we can kind of work on. So that's one.
Just so I can clarify, because I'm sure other people have a similar question. You scroll down, so it says top bottom. Is the top like their best habit, like one that they have really well?
Nope, top bad behavior. Nope, be like what do you do what do you do the most? And then what's like the bottom one? What do you do the least? It's still a bad behavior, but like yeah, right. So but like top and bottom. And then so that's that. So that's where we would start, right? And then we've created this habit tracker for you for the 21 days. And essentially the first block here, which is bad habit dial down, you'll put in, you know, again, there's 6 spaces here. Like you're going to put in 1 to 3 bad habits. And then the idea here is like checking off every single day that you dial down or eliminate that bad habit, right? So we're going to track like again, this would be dialing down, eliminating or not doing these bad habits, tracking these over the course of 21 days. And then the next 21 days will be new habits. What are the things that you want to start doing? But you're also continuing to dial down those bad habits. So the bad habit dial down is the full 42 days. But the bottom half of the 42 days is going to be continuing to dial up some new habits. And for some folks, it might be going a little slower, a little faster, might be just focusing on dialing down bad habits, might not even be including any new habits. And that's okay, because this is going to be at your pace. And this is a kickstart. There's no winner. There's no loser. There's not a prize. It is you setting yourself up for success and getting some executive coaching from Jon and myself and the group accountability to help make that change. So it's something cool that we're doing. There's no external motivation of getting an award or anything like that. It's helping yourself get better. And trust me, the reward of you improving and leveling up and upgrading is going to be far more rewarding than any little gift that we can give you. So in any event, all that stuff's going to be included in the curriculum. I know not many folks are probably watching this on YouTube, and we've been chatting a lot. So hopefully you've listened to the entire conversation up to this point. But with that being said, those are my thoughts. That's my my spiel on the Dial Down, Dial Up Kickstart that we got going on again starting Monday, January 17th. It's going to go for 42 days. So I think, what is it, March? It ends in March. Geez, I should have had this right at the top of my head. It ends on March 28th. That's when it ends. So in any event, we got about just a few more open slots. So if you're interested, sign up. Hopefully you're not listening to this and the slots are all filled up at that point. But I appreciate you all tuning in, listening to this week's community conversation. Again, today's the focus was on the info on this Kickstart and why it's important to us. And Jon, I appreciate you being on and leading this charge with me. It's pretty cool. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate y'all tuning in, and have a good rest of your day and week. Bye.